Okay, so this is going to be part 2 of the series trilogy thing that I started yesterday with these two, Malcolm and Simone, discussing the issues in South Africa relating to, well, their title is Africans Rise Up Against Black Illegal Immigration. Yeah, like I said, I did a video about it yesterday. So this is going to be part 2, and then we will finish up part 3 later on. So let us get into it.
Let's go to what, like, some actual statements from these protesters to get a picture of what they're actually saying. Right. So here are what some of the March on March leaders and protesters are saying. That's the primary group that's leading all these, if you recall. This is from, I'm going to butcher this, Jacinta Ngogobizi Zuma. He's the founder and national leader of March and March. They are not victims. If you walk down the roads, you will find that they take buildings. There are drugs, there is prostitution, there are cartels, there are mafias. So everything in this country is a fertile ground for criminals to thrive. We are under attack from across Africa. This only thing.
But once again, and just reiterating, it's by design, and it's not like there weren't criminals and drug activity and prostitution here to begin with in South Africa, specifically amongst the black population. I mean, it's just adding to that which was already here. But yeah, I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying it was here to begin with, and it was happening a lot in any case. But yes, it just adds to it, basically.
That they do is label us as xenophobic. There is nothing xenophobic about wanting law and order in your country. We are frustrated.
These people are MAGA.
And that's true. There's nothing wrong. I mean, it's obviously you would want law and order in your country. The problem is, once again, we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. They are communist. So therefore, a communist society would be considered to Western civilization as lawless. So the paradigm needs to be addressed.
I know that. The thing is, like, if you just take this out of context and you're like, according to, like, James Brown, like, what's a really white sounding name? James Carpenter from Ohio, like, you're just gonna be like, yeah, of course. We're frustrated, tired, and feel ignored by our own government. Our demand is that our government is moving at a snail's pace in addressing this issue of illegal immigrants. Oh my God, right? It sounds so
But again, once again, the ANC government, it's now the GNU, which is effectively just as bad. Once again, it's communist. It's designed to run at its sales pace. It's designed for societal collapse. This isn't the only thing that they've failed at miserably, because, well, according to our understanding, they failed, but according to their understanding, they want Pan-Africanism. They want this to happen. And interestingly, so because they want it to happen, by that reasoning, they should be importing boat tons of illegal immigrants coming from Africa into South Africa, just by that reasoning. So it lets you know that they're failing, even on their metrics, to perform what they're trying to do.
like universal, so American, so UK. This is from Sanele Nkambule. I'm so sorry. This is the treasurer of March and March. Many spaza shops and informal businesses in the townships are owned and run by foreign nationals without proper trading rights, placing an unfair burden on citizens who pay.
But there's so many black South African citizens that also operate on, incorrect trading rights and all sorts of stuff. There's a whole bunch of illegal businesses that just operate, and of course the government doesn't do anything about it. So yeah,
taxes. He goes on to call for these shops to be run by South Africans, and he wants audits of immigrants, a review of study visas, and army deployment in high immigrant areas. And this is it sounds a little bit like a
On
mix
army
of,
deployment in high immigrant areas?
but they want
But
ice.
MAGA
They want ice.
hasn't even thought of this yet. Come on, we gotta
No.
be taking...
Well, the thing is, again, it's all fine and well to say army deployment. The thing is, we don't have an effective army. In fact, we don't really have an army at all. I think we've got like 2 helicopters or something like that. And I mean, uniforms are completely outdated. So many of the military people are just fat and just overweight, and they don't know what the hell's going on, and they can't follow orders and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, yeah, it's all fine and well to say, oh, we must get the military involved if we had one. And even then, it probably wouldn't happen. And that's why the communist dictatorship here in South Africa has systematically dismantled the military that we did have under bad apartheid. They dismantled that because it's part of the plan. So when Westerners, and when people in the international audience hear this, they think, oh, South Africa's got a military, that's why they should deploy it. We don't have a military. So again,
They just want ice. They want ice plus the National Guard. That is like exactly what we've been doing.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, that's what we need. National Guard in these neighborhoods.
Yeah, and then here's what BBC quoted one anonymous demonstrator saying as they filmed a Pretoria march. We are grateful that we now have groups like this that have come to aid the voice of what we have always been preaching about. Illegal immigration is a big problem to our society. And then additional groups that have been talking about this. Here is Fami Madondo. The immigration laws of the country have never been enforced by the law enforcement agencies. That's why we're sitting with all these crises.
But it's by design.
We are stressing the fact that illegal foreigners in the country must leave. He criticized Ubuntu narratives in this context also. The narrative of Ubuntu, unfortunately, is the nonsense that has put us where we are today. Ubuntu does not mean that you must come into the country illegally, which is so like him. It sounds like an American, being like, look, we believe in helping people who are in need, but we have to take care, of our own social services, etc., before we let other people in. So it's,
and well, that's the thing. This is where you get, I suppose, this is where you get the whole idea of, the TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. But once again, it's not a one-for-one kind of thing, because the people, it's probably the easiest way to describe what's happening in South Africa is if, let's say, Kamala Harris got into power, or even better, it's quite a one-for-one, I suppose, with what's happening in Britain under Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is effectively, and sort of just by his actions, you can see that he is a traitor to the UK. So you've got a person in power that wants to dismantle the country on purpose. That's exactly what's happening in South Africa. You've got people in power who are not interested in the citizens of the country, and they want to destroy the country by enacting these communist policies for destruction, basically.
I mean, what I like about him referring to Ubuntu is that he's referring to sort of the African version of progressivism of like, you have to help everyone, shut up and like just give everything away. And he's like, hold on, I'm not going to lie down and do that. Here's Tshepo Totwe. He's the secretary of the Abahambe movement, and they're also collaborating with March and March.
So for people who are wondering what Ubuntu is, because I wanted to look this up, it is a profound Southern African philosophy of humanism, often translated as I am because we are, rooted in languages like Zulu. It emphasizes a collective well-being or universal bond, or the belief that all of humanity are shaped by our relationships with others.
It's basically only for black people though. Like, you cannot be a white person and be seen as a person that subscribes to Ubuntu. That's what they would want to sell you to make you think, oh yeah, like, this is why we have the concept of the Rainbow Nation, which they sold to the white people. But amongst the black people, they didn't subscribe to it. Because they knew that this is how we're going to get the white people to be sympathetic to us, but we're not going to be sympathetic to them. It's a one-sided kind of empathy. They want us to be empathetic to them, but they're not going to change their tune to be empathetic to us. There's no idea of compromise in that regard. So yes, Ubuntu is the idea of togetherness, but togetherness specifically for the black population in South Africa and then broadly Africa. It is racism, basically. It's racism.
Point out that this philosophy didn't go very far. It went about a quarter as far as apparently it went in the West, right? So be aware that these people may talk like they have these philosophies, and everyone's like, oh, these native whatever tribes in Africa, they have these wonderful progressive ideas that hold for about this long.
Yeah, okay, so you kind of summed it up, yeah.
So Dishepo says, we are here to partake and collaborate with March on March on a progressive march that is involving different organizations and also national forums to collaborate and fight against the foreign nationals that are taking advantage of our economic freedom in our country. That is the key purpose for us to indicate and send a message that we are being labeled as xenophobic, and that is not the point. So what are the protests like?
You're sure this guy was black, so we're not going to get the channel taken down.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I did check. And again, I am linking to my sources. You can literally watch the video. This last quote was from, you can see the video. It's on africanews.en or africanews.com. All right, just go to Substack or Patreon. I link to my sources, friends. So what are the protests like? Well, Human Rights Watch, surprise, surprise, in an article citing the xenophobic attacks, reports that some of the protests have escalated into vigilante actions, assaults on migrants, including beatings, shop attacks, and reported deaths, not confirmed deaths, of Nigerians and Ethiopians.
Yeah, those reported deaths of white farmers, they really didn't care much about.
Right, just, where are the deaths? Show me the bodies.
Yeah, and it's always interesting. It's always, with the white farm murders and all that kind of stuff, it's always considered as, oh no, it's just normal crime. It's just because, South Africa is a very violent place. Even if it was the case and it was just normal crime, which it isn't, that's such a huge indictment on the government to begin with. I mean, we've heard Cyril Ramaphosa himself say, yeah, well, South Africa is just a violent place. We've got a lot of problems with crime. It's like, dude, you are the president of the freaking country. How can't you see that it's on you to fix it? This is why we don't have a military. This is why we've got a very ineffective, not all of them, not the people themselves, but the institution, the way it's laid out, the police service is incredibly inefficient here. And of course, because of corruption and fraud and stuff like that, but it's baked into the system is the point. It's designed to fail, and it is doing.
And intimidation. Human Rights Watch and others have noted insufficient police response in places. Foreign governments like Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya have issued warnings to their citizens, and in Ghana's case, offered evacuation flights with low uptake on reported instances. So they're like, don't worry, we'll fly you back. And the migrants are like, yeah, I'm good.
No,
of course they would be.
They're going to stay. So what is the South African government doing in response? As they communicate on the official website of the Presidency of the Republic of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa's administration and officials like the Deputy President Paul Mashatile condemn the violence. They call it vigilante lawlessness. They acknowledge that there are some legitimate grievances over illegal immigration, and they have highlighted that they are deporting people, that they have deported over 100,000 people in recent years, and they've pledged.
But again, it's a smokescreen, because once again, it goes back down to the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. They want Pan-Africanism. They're Pan-Africanists. They want this to happen, but they also realize that they're going to make the people that vote for them cross if they say they want it to happen, and they're going to make people cross if they don't tell the news that has been captured by the ANC. They're, a big funder of the mainstream media in South Africa is, funded by the ANC. That's how it works in communist dictatorships. So it's obviously a smokescreen, because they need to let the citizens know, no, we're on your side, we'll do what we can to deport them. but these are the same people that are allowing them to come into the country. So it's just a smokescreen. They're actually not doing anything. They'll deport 10 for the sake of making it a news headline. Oh, look, the ANC deported 10 illegal immigrants. But they'll import another 100, another 1,000. So they only show you what, you know, they want you to see, but they'll do far worse behind closed doors, because they ultimately want exactly what they're going after. They're pushing the policies, and they'll get them either way, one way or another. And once again, the EFF, the MK, and the ANC make up 64% of the votes won in 2024. That means the same people that are probably crashing out about all these illegal immigrants coming into the country, these are the same people that voted for either the EFF, the MK, or the ANC. Retarded.
Legal enforcement, but they also deny widespread xenophobia, and they call the incidents isolated or criminal. But the larger media narrative about these protests, when you distill it all together, is that they're being framed as this recurring pattern of xenophobic tensions in South Africa during economic hardships.
The mainstream media has been bought and paid for.
They point that this is like echoing similar activities in 2008 and 2019. People are citing Operation Dudula activities. I don't know them. And basically they're trying to say that there are high inflows of migrants and refugees. And while you get this with additional regional instability, which we've covered on other podcasts, and you have porous borders in competition for scarce economic opportunity, you're gonna get stuff like this. But I find it very interesting that when people talk about immigration from a left-leaning standpoint, it's always xenophobia and people just being like evil racists, when it's super clear, like, it doesn't matter if you're white, if you're whatever, like, people don't like their jobs being taken. People don't like people breaking the laws of their countries
and acting differently. A lot of these other African populations, like Somalis, and people are wondering why I said, like, we gotta get, they're a population that essentially specializes in fraud, right? Like, obviously not every Somalian is a fraudster, but we're looking at rates in some of these communities that are over 50%. Like, it is astonishing the rate of fraud that we're getting in some of these communities. This, for example, was the Somali immigrant community.
But sorry to say it, but, and again, like 100% I agree, like the Somalians are. But if you had to take, you can Google this yourself. A poor white person is less likely to commit crime than a rich black person. Statistically, it's true. You can check it out. You can Google it if you don't believe me. It is what it is. So once again, you've got people. African tribalism is akin to communism. You've got people that are and have a bend towards, and again, I'm not saying all of them, but what I am saying is the people that don't do it have chosen to, or are in the process of changing their mindset from it. But anyway, you've got these people, and unfortunately it is, black people. And obviously, again, it's not a racist thing, because you've also got freaking liberals in America and stuff like that subscribe to communism and that kind of thing. So it's not a race thing. Once again, it's an ideology thing. But you've got people with that kind of mindset. They are generally more prone to criminal activity because of the mindset. So if you've got a communist mindset in South Africa and you've got a communist mindset that's in Africa, it's the same mindset. There is no difference in the mindset. So this is why you get the crash outs in the liberal spheres in, it's a good comparison, the liberal spheres in America and in the UK and in Europe and stuff. They fight a lot. There's a lot of infighting, but they all subscribe to the same doctrine, which funnily enough causes infighting. That's why tribalism and communism is the same thing, fundamentally, because it's they'll all agree on some things, but those things are so dumb and so incoherent that they find it so confusing that I'm one of them and you're one of them, and we both agree on the same thing, but it doesn't actually make logical sense. So that's why we need to fight each other, because it doesn't make sense.
I think it was 84% of Somalian immigrants are on welfare. Like, why are you bringing in a population? And then what was shocking is then somebody said, well, Somalians earn more than the average American. And I was like, and I looked it up and it's true. Like, this is just fraud. So just to double click on these numbers here, it is 81% of Somalian households are on welfare, 89% of Somalian households with children are on welfare, and that is way higher than any other.
Well, the thing is, yeah, and 100%, and, you know, shout out to Nick Shirley, you know, for exposing this stuff in Minnesota and now California, and I know you're seeing stuff in Cuba and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, he's a legend, that guy. We should, only we had a whole bunch of people like that in South Africa. But you know, the fraud is 100% a problem, specifically here in South Africa. But it's the system is designed to be fraudulent. You know, in America, in Europe, in Western civilization, the mentality is, and of course it's the right mentality to have, you know, fraud is considered a bad thing. Which, of course, you know, in a logical world, of course, it's a bad thing. But here in South Africa, you know, the idea of fraud is considered, it's part of the policy. Part of the policy is fraud. It's how you, quote unquote, get ahead. It's how you make things happen is you do fraud. And that's why, you know, this is why so many people find it so frustrating, or at least level-headed, reasoned, logical people in South Africa find it so crazy and so frustrating, because that's not how you do things. But the fraud and stuff is only allowed if you're of a certain skin color. And of course, you know, why would you want to do fraud anyway if you're a logical, reasonable person? It's not good to do, but they'll only allow it if it's a certain skin color, then you can get away with it. Or if you know somebody who knows somebody, right, then you can get away with it. But yeah, the point is that's how it is. It's baked into the system.
Other immigrant group that is an astonishingly high number, and even after 10 years in.
Sorry, last one. Well, I mean, you can kind of see it. That's exactly the same as, you know, the whole Minnesota story. You know, with Tampon Tim Walz and stuff like that. It's by design. They allowed the immigrants to come in. They allowed it to happen because it's by design. That you can basically take New York, you can take Minnesota, you can take that kind of ideology that they have that is very antithetical to the rest of America. You can take that, and that's exactly the same kind of mentality that South Africa has had for 32 years now. That's by design, yeah.
The United States, the rates remain at around those numbers. And yet, if you look at the average Somalian reported income in the United States, it's 70 to 80,000 per household.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This makes no sense unless they're predominantly making money through fraud.
Yeah, we did another episode on ethnic cartels, like the Patel motels and all the Indonesian nail salons in California.
And it's like, how can you earn so much money but you actually don't have a job? What else could the logical conclusion be but you're doing fraud? Especially if you're an illegal immigrant coming in and you're earning money and you don't have a job, or you've got a very basic entry-level kind of job, yet you've got exorbitant amounts of cash coming in. What is the logical explanation? It's got to be fraud. And specifically, if you're an illegal immigrant and you've come into the country, where do you think you're getting that fraud from? Where do you think you're getting those kickbacks from, that money from? Well, you're obviously getting it from the government. The same government that allowed you into the country is obviously going to give you money in the country. But they see that as progress. They see that that's the right thing to do. You know, fraud is, once again, it's normal. Fraud is normal. And it's To our brains, it's obviously freaking daft and lunatic, but that's how it is.
California. And it's super common. This is not more to any particular ethnic group, but for especially immigrant
some
groups.
ethnic groups disproportionately do fraud. Like, we've got to be realistic.
But no,
about it.
I mean, it doesn't have to be fraud. It's basically if an ethnic group, especially immigrant groups, find an economic niche, often of like not glamorous or desirable work. Fraud can fall into that, but so can like running motels or doing nail salons, right? Low paying,
I'm okay
where you
with
can often
Vietnamese
skirt
nail
laws.
salon owners, right? They're
I know,
not
but what I'm
investing
saying is
in
this is,
society.
I'm trying to point to this just being a natural economic dynamic that happens with immigrant groups. And it just so happens that the ethnic cartel that many Somalis have formed in many states is around like the business
Do you
model of
understand
fraud.
how big a
Yeah.
part of their culture it is? When U.S. aid was shut down by the Trump administration, Somalia and a bunch of human rights groups put up these giant like warnings saying that Somalia's economy collapsed. Hold on, I want to see what was the percent. I want to.
Well, that's it, because like how many Somalians would be doing fraud in America, and then obviously sending the money back to Somalia. I mean, that obviously gives away the whole jig. The very fact that when they cut U.S. aid, it had a severe impact on the Somalian economy. So yeah, I mean, it's U.S. aid. First of all, you're giving free money to Somalia. The government in Somalia doesn't actually uplift the country of Somalia. They just end up eating the money like they always do, because that's, part and parcel of it. But then you've also got all the fraudsters in America sending cash. And so now when, the Trump administration decides to clamp down on it, of course, why would we be surprised when the economy of Somalia gets affected when you shut down corruption in America from Somalian fraudsters? Because they're sending the money back, and now you're siphoning off the money. So of course the economy in Somalia is going to struggle. And this is also why Somalians everywhere else in the world, they're nationalist. They'll put their country first. You look at most of the people, I've seen a whole bunch of videos of these PvP server people that go over to America and UK and Europe, and they get interviewed and they get asked, which country would you support if a war had to break out? And they would, hands down say, well, the country that I came from, Somalia, Nigeria, wherever they came from, they would say, no, I would support that country, my country, if I had to go to war. In the meantime, they've fled that country because it's so oppressive, and they've gone to America for a better life. They've gone to UK, they've gone to, Europe, wherever. Why wouldn't you support the country that's now helping you out, helping you get up on your feet, helping you with opportunities? Wouldn't you say that that's a far more better country to support in a war, because they've done a lot better things for me in my life? That's why the mentality is completely backwards.
Right.
And you're talking about the foreign nation of Somalia, not Somalians living in America.
They had estimated that the freezing of USA funding represented an economic exposure equivalent of 9% of Somalia's gross national income. 9% of their gross national income was coming from USA.
And that's just USAID. We're not talking about potential remittances being sent. Sorry.
By the fraudsters that are in the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
that the USAID being shut down didn't change all of the autism services, all of the Medicare services,
all the hospices, and
all of the home health and transportation and
the transportation stuff,
etc. services that Somalians were apparently daycares fraudulently running in the United States. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if.
And it's also interesting how many cases there were of autism that suddenly exploded. Autism suddenly exploded when all this fraud was happening. That's how they obviously got it to carry on happening, because they had to fudge the numbers and make out as, oh no, there's been an explosion of autism in America. That's why we've got so many of these flippin' Somalian autism centers and hospices and all this kind of crazy stuff. It's they obviously need to justify the fraud by saying, oh, there's been a surge in autism. That's why we need so many flippin', hospices, and why we need all these things. There's an upsurge in elderly people that need care. There's, and it's like, this is how they justify it so that they can carry on doing the fraud, so that they can somehow benefit Somalia by stealing money from the taxpayer and giving it to fraudsters. It's suicidal empathy.
I mean, I was really intrigued when the Trump administration announced that JD Vance would be like the fraud czar in the United States. I haven't heard any updates from that.
Oh, really? He's done a really good job. So he shut down tons. This is in California, of hospices that were fake.
Really?
And,
so he followed through.
Yeah, he shut down 4 times the amount that Gavin Newsom has since he took power. Gavin Newsom tried to claim that he had actually done the shutdowns.
Are you kidding me? No.
He flipped out about them doing the shutdowns, and he tried to act like he was the one who managed it all.
Obviously, you do that.
Yeah.
God. I think Tim Walz did something similar when a couple daycare.
Oh, they did. Yeah, Tim Walz did.
He was
like, we did it, guys.
And then he acted like, and they're like, Tim Walz's department has done nothing to help us at all. Like, I do not know why he's taking credit for this.
Golly, that's so bad. Oh my gosh. Yeah. This, though, it helps to fix something. And the other thing that this news really hammered home for me was just how effective the media narrative has been just in my subconscious in making me just my evoked set of like anti-immigration protests means white people getting their panties in a bunch,
mainstream media,
I know
man,
logically that's not what it's about, and yet the coverage of it from that angle is so pervasive.
Well, and I find it interesting that in the United States, I do not think blacks would make this same sort of argument, but these people seem to genuinely be concerned that people are going to label them as xenophobic, right? Like, I love it that there's like black South Africans.
You're saying there are black people in America who would not want to say that they're against immigration?
No, they don't in America. You get such an argument, but these people seem to.
Okay, we'll do that in the next video. But yeah, that's exactly it. And it's I know. You've got the liberal news networks, your CNNs, your MSNBCs, your ABCs, your all that kind of stuff. So you guys know what I'm talking about when it's, the media is bought and paid for by liberal institutions, by people that want to push a certain narrative. This is why you see, obviously, in the mainstream media, you'll see this bend towards wanting to slander independent news channels. I suppose this is why YouTube has blown up so much with specific contenters and political commentary people who talk about what's going on in terms of the actual facts and the logic and the reason and the stats and the data. And specifically, those people generally tend to be on the right, the political right. And this is why people who are fed up with mainstream media do tend to side to the independent YouTubers and stuff like that who are talking about the politics from the other side and showing the stats and showing the data for the sake of, well, this is actually what's going on. And you've got the mainstream media for decades and decades now, I mean, to be fair, where because they've been bought and paid for, they need to sell a specific narrative to make the liberal aisle look like the moral bastions, look like the people that are doing the right thing. Because, once again, it's by design. The liberals want to institute communism. The liberals want to bring over more Islamists. They want to destroy, capitalism. They want to destroy the West. They ultimately want to destroy Christianity, because that's basically what it's about. And so this is, once again, you get the Red Green Alliance and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, in South Africa, the whole immigration thing, yeah, it is a problem, but it's a problem of not being able to differentiate. If you're an average person on the street, not being able to differentiate. If you are anti the immigration, but you are pro voting for the people and the political parties that enable that immigration, your mindset is the problem. you need to change your mindset. You don't realize that you crash out in real life about it, but your ideology is causing it. And you're putting people in power that enable it. And unfortunately, this is the same mentality when it comes to the liberals in America. It comes to the same with the liberals in Europe and the UK. If you people are crashing out about it, but you keep on voting for liberal parties that want it to happen, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say to you. I don't know. You're the problem. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys in the next one. So the next one will be wrapping up this one here. This video will be making a part 3, and then that will be it. But yeah, till next time, folks. Cheers.